Hello, my loves. I'm Luna, a 5-star astrologer and tarot reader of over 8 years, and today we're going to be talking about Zendaya and Tom Holland. So these two are engaged, and you guys have been requesting info on these two. I just did the Synastry chart reading. It should already be posted, so you guys can check that out. And we're going to be looking at their composite chart today, which tells us about the future of the connection. It's really great for married couples just to look at, think of it like the birth chart of a relationship. What kinds of conflicts will arise with the destiny of the connection? What are your strengths and weaknesses as a couple? It's a little different from the Synastry chart reading in the sense that the Synastry chart is more about compatibility, right? It's more like, what is your temperament like and how does that interact with the other person? Versus the composite chart is just, if you guys were in a connection of any sort, what would that look like? What kind of external circumstances would arise, and so on and so forth. And if you would like a reading with me for deeper insight into your love life, career, or your head, you guys can head over to my Etsy shop. I have readings open. Also, though, if you want a Synastry or a composite chart reading, I have that offered. The composite chart reading comes with a forecast because for relationship forecasting, the best tool is actually the composite chart and transits to the composite chart. So you guys can check that out over on my Etsy shop. I do keep limited spaces so that I can actually give you guys my full care and attention because I'm a one-woman show. So book before those are full. Now, starting with their sun in their composite chart, we don't have a birth time for Tom, so we don't have house placements, which would give us a lot more information. But the sun in a couple will tell us about the vitality of the couple, the nature of the couple. And the sun in Cancer is really great. I love a sun in Cancer for a composite chart. I also really love a sun in Taurus for a composite chart. Traditionally great for marriage and family and building something together. And these are both signs that don't tend to get bored with time. So it means that the relationship is built on steady ground. The nature of the connection is one that moves you toward affection and connection and family and children. And that's always, a really big part of marriage is those things. And it kind of provides, the sun in Cancer, a really big focus on family and emotional connection. And even with their Sun-Mercury conjunction, which looking at their Synastry, they had a lot of Sun-Mercury contexts. So a lot of their connection is really tied to this ability to understand each other almost without words. And in the sign of Cancer, the relationship is built on privacy, family, community. It means that if these two had children, they'd be extremely protective of their family, like the type to hide a pregnancy and not tell anybody until after the baby's born, and even then hide the baby's name. Very much extremely, extremely private kind of energy when we have so much Cancer energy. They have a stellium here. And also, this is why you should always read the Synastry chart with the composite chart, because you can see repeating motifs and which parts of the Synastry chart will become embedded in the kind of unfolding of the connection and the purpose of the connection. So the repeating motifs of the Sun-Mercury conjunction or Sun-Mercury contacts indicates that a big part of what this relationship is here to do is to create that ability to have your home comes with you everywhere. They're each other's home. Almost this kind of telepathic connection that allows them to feel seen, understood, and comforted with little to no effort. We also have this Venus in Cancer, which Zendaya has a Venus in Cancer. So this means that the nature of the connection is really funneled through Zendaya's love language. So this is a relationship that's very affectionate, very attuned to one another. These are, kind of the type of couple where when you're out with them, you're definitely going to feel like you're third wheeling. They have their own language. They're kind of both watching each other. And it's she can just read his mind and know, oh, actually, he doesn't like that water. I'm going to get him a different water. And there's been no conversation. Everybody's just kind of aware that these two are in their own bubble and they're orbiting each other. Venus in Cancer is also really great for, again, being able to maintain a loving and beautiful connection even as time goes on and the relationship becomes routine. And that's something that I did notice in the Synastry chart, is that a lot of people think these two are PR because they met on a set and they're not particularly show-offy or they don't seem super in love, but it's because their love is very grounded and boring. Cancer energy is very much, I cook for you, we spend all day watching movies together, I love hanging out with your sister. It's very that's kind of the nature of the relationship. Their daily life as a couple, even though their lives as actors are very glamorous and crazy, their relationship is very normal and maybe a little bit boring to the outside world. Venus opposes Jupiter and it squares Saturn, so they have this T-square in the chart. Even though squares and oppositions are usually negative, hard aspects from Jupiter or Saturn to Venus are actually beneficial when we're looking at a composite chart or a marriage chart and you're looking for longevity. And this is because Saturn is the planet that enforces longevity. It's the Time Lord in astrology, and it's what creates that sense of duty. Marriage is duty first. It's a commitment to devotion, and that devotion needs to be grounded in something solid that will outlast transient feelings. And so a Venus square to Saturn can sometimes make the relationship stagnate. It can mean that the relationship can get boring. It can get kind of overly routine, or even just like one of those things where like you've just been together for a really long time and you don't really think about changing things. It's very much the kind of aspect that you'd see in like, you know, like people who get together like in high school or college and then they just never break up because they just only have ever been with each other and they don't really think about it. That's the downside of this placement. However, the upside is that the relationship's default is commitment. It's we're in it for the long haul. It's not a relationship that tends to reevaluate itself very often, especially with a Jupiter opposition. Jupiter is expansion. Jupiter is growth. It's what allows a connection to remain lively and fun. And it also allows you to be flexible enough to change with time through the difficult parts. That's why Jupiter and Saturn having aspects to the main personal planets is very important for it to last. However, a Jupiter opposition to Venus means that the relationship can struggle with reevaluating itself. And this can manifest, with Saturn in Aries, a difficulty with confronting problems head on. They may avoid conflict, or maybe even see their needs as a bit selfish. When Venus is in Cancer, there's a very big focus on each other's needs. How do I make you feel safer? How do we keep the peace? How do we keep our safety and home? However, that can also become a shell. Cancer is a crab, symbolically. And when it squares Aries, which is this energy that's very direct and forthcoming, and rams, they could experience asserting boundaries for personal space or changing as individuals as selfish. And that can create conflict in the relationship where they're afraid to create tension, or they feel like their own changing needs and personal growth risk tension, and so then they avoid it. The Venus opposition to Jupiter, though, in general, Jupiter-Venus contacts always create celebratory energy and fun and a genuine adoration for each other. Depending on if it's an opposition, it means that they can kind of jump back and forth between being extremely lovey-dovey and then staying in their comfort zone and feeling like they don't really want to go away from each other. They don't want to. It could be overly clingy. And then Jupiter in Capricorn is obviously their career, their long-term goals as a couple. And so that they can bounce between, okay, let's focus on our goals. Let's grow together. Let's celebrate these big milestones. And then it can sometimes, because it's an opposition, it's a seesaw, flip to the other side where they're saying no to big opportunities, where they're holding themselves back from big goals, where they're maybe not celebrating amazing things because they feel like it's disrespectful to the relationship. So essentially, they have a big devotion to the relationship, and sometimes that can hold them back from bigger goals or from growing or changing as a couple. But overall, even this T-square means that a big focus of the relationship is how do I balance my private life, Venus in Cancer, with my desires for growth in Capricorn, right? For my desires for growth in my career, in a way that isn't selfish, in a way that doesn't lose the focus on us, right? We as a couple. And so this is also in cardinal signs. So having a lot of placements in cardinal signs means that they're very driven. They're very usually on the same page, and they are more willing to do the work that is necessary to maintain a long-term relationship, even if it's difficult, because they're unwilling to let it go. And in terms of the long haul of this connection, it means that the relationship will reliably constantly face the same conflict of how do I grow while protecting my family, protecting our home, and also maintaining boundaries that allow me to continue to grow in my career. And depending on, obviously, the house placements, we would get a little bit more specific on how that would play out. For example, if their Cancer stellium was in their second house, it would be about money and value systems, so their value system being very tied to family. And with the opposition Capricorn in the 8th house, it could be about them feeling like they want to create a legacy. They want to make sure that they leave something behind for their children, or they want to create generational wealth, but they also want to make sure that they're present enough to, cater to their children growing up, or cater to the now instead of not just their legacy. So it depends, right? Depends on where this falls in their chart houses to see exactly how this conflict would manifest in terms of areas in life. They also have their moon in Aquarius and their Mars in Gemini. So there's a strong friendship at the core of the connection. These are air signs, so it means that their connection is mostly grounded in comfort and relatability. They feel like they get each other and the relationship is easy. It's comforting. With the moon in Aquarius, the emotional stability of the connection is tied to being able to feel mentally understood and allowed to be completely and utterly yourself, and to have a partner in crime, a friend, a life partner, someone who just will be there no matter what, and also allow you the space to be yourself without trying to control you. The moon in Aquarius is not a super strong placement for a couple, just because the moon is not in its best condition in Aquarius. The moon is in a Saturn-ruled sign here. So it means that, again, there's themes in the relationship where the relationship could sometimes become a little bit of a roommate vibe. I just know you, we've been together a very long time, things are easy between us, and we laugh and know each other pretty well. And they can lose a little bit of the passion or the excitement that keeps a connection growing and evolving. But again, this kind of connection is one that sustains itself in the context of their lives if they're always apart or there's a lot of distance. Where they're not always seeing each other in person. It could be something that sustains itself simply through calls and through texts and through the mental connection of the relationship being irreplaceable. So that's kind of one of the pluses of this placement. However, the moon in Aquarius is still ruled by that Saturn in Aries, which is the crux of their chart, which means that the very same thing that can kind of push them into being roommates is this constant push-pull between how do I maintain this loving relationship that is my home while also making space for Jupiter and Capricorn growing and achieving and creating legacy without us becoming disconnected and living completely separate lives, right? Where maybe at times the relationship, it's like maybe they're months apart from one another and they're just checking in every day, and it can sometimes feel like, am I being selfish by being away from my relationship? That's a really big theme in the relationship, and it will always come up even, when they have a child, or even if their careers kind of die down a little bit. There could be resentment too sometimes. Their conflicts could be about, well, I gave up this opportunity to focus on you more. And then the other person could feel like, well, now you're making me feel responsible for the fact that you let go of this opportunity. And there could just be kind of tiffs about things like that. Their Venus, just kind of opposes that. Their Mars and Gemini, the way that they conquer things together, the way that they achieve together, is very malleable. They're very flexible. That means that they will do whatever it takes to make the relationship work within the structures of their life. Gemini it's a dual sign. It's a very flexible sign. Mars and Gemini is very fun in a relationship. It means that there's a lot of wit and excitement, and it means that no matter what kind of challenges life throws at them, they will typically make sure that they communicate and that they see eye to eye. And there's a very team-oriented energy here with the Aquarius moon and the Mars and Gemini. We're a team. And with Cancer energy, it's very us against the world. We're protecting this. This is our space. This is our bubble. We make the rules kind of vibe. But that team energy can sometimes perpetuate that same feeling of feeling like making choices for yourself becomes selfishness. It's like it can sometimes feel like there's a lose-lose no matter what. If they do take the opportunity and keep going in their own direction, they can start feel like, oh, it was selfish of me. And the other person could feel like, oh, I guess they really want to go do that thing. And they're going to be supportive, but they're going to feel a little let down. And then if they don't take the opportunities and go do whatever it is they want to go do, the other person then feels guilty, like, oh, you're not going after the things you want to do because of me. And so then now they carry guilt. And then the other person feels resentment for not having done what they wanted. Even if things remain cordial and they both are supportive of each other, there could still be this kind of looming conflict in the background of how do we manage all of these different directions, these push and pull energies. What else? That Mars and Gemini, I think Tom is the one who has like a sun in Gemini. So it seems like he's the one who really takes the lead when it comes to navigating conflict in the relationship, and being able to ground the connection in this rapport and wit and, kind of being able to bounce back. So I do think that they're very open to the idea of having an unconventional relationship. And that is something that showed up in their Synastry, with Zendaya's Venus opposition to their Uranus-Neptune conjunction, that the relationship is one that definitely has some strange rules. I don't want to speculate or anything, but sometimes they can manifest in strange ways, where it's like, maybe we'll just not break up, but we'll just let each other off the hook for 3 months. You go do your thing, I'll do my thing, and I'll let it be. I do know that they broke up a few years back and they got back together. I don't know how that played out, but with Mars and Gemini and Moon and Aquarius, they're in trine here. So this is like I know you care about me even if we're apart. I know you care about me even if we do things in a strange way that other people might think means you don't care, right? Because Moon in Aquarius is a little detached and sometimes a little cerebral. And even though the core of the relationship is very comforting and safe, it does feel like they create their own bubble, and they're like, in our relationship, we make our own rules. And it doesn't matter what other people would think. I know how you feel, and I know what this means, and whatever we need to do to conquer our problems is up to us, and it doesn't matter what others would say about it. So sometimes the relationship may have gone through like strange and unconventional paths at times that maybe other people would question. But it seems like at the core of it, it's just, I want to protect this for what it is, and I don't ever want you to resent me, and I don't ever want to hold you back. And it's almost like they have this mutual belief of like, I would rather keep you in my life, even if it's as a friend, than force you to sacrifice something that will make you hate me. So they do have this sense of like really preserving the connection at any cost, even if it's just friends. They want each other in each other's life, no matter what. And that can be the source of the stagnation in the relationship, is that even though they're innovating how to conquer problems, they may not always allow each other to be a little messy and ask each other to fight for each other. That's what it is. Saturn in Aries, it's like squaring Venus and squaring Jupiter. It's like sometimes you need to be angry and show that you care by being a little messy, by being a little selfish and being like, no, I don't want you to go do that project. I want you to stay here. Or vice versa. I'm going to go do this project and I want you to wait for me. I think that they have a feeling of like always wanting to think of the other person. And so then they have a tendency to get into fights where it's like they're both trying to outprove how much they care by being more selfless. And that selflessness can manifest as like almost a roommate energy, where they don't want to impose or force or get too messy. So then they just give each other space in a way that can sometimes feel like roommate vibes. We're like living a relationship that's parallel to each other while pretending we're okay, even though we haven't really been connecting for months. That's kind of the negative of this. Now, they do have a grand trine in their chart. They actually have a kite formation, which again makes them very driven. It means that there's a lot of energy towards achievement and movement and making things happen together. The trine is between their sun, Pluto, and Saturn. They're very mature, and they're capable of withstanding transformation and change that other people may kind of struggle with. These malefics, Saturn and Pluto, I mean, Saturn and Pluto is usually the points in the chart that tell you where you guys might have a tower moment. And if Saturn, Pluto, Mars, the malefics are angry with each other in the chart, it's going to be a very, very difficult time. I think I read Selena and Justin's chart. It was literally just Synastry and the Composite chart. There's just so much blockages, not even just interpersonally, but the relationship faced a lot of challenges from every direction. When Mars, Pluto, Saturn, they're not talking to each other, they're angry with each other. It's going to create a lot of friction. Now, when they're in trine, it means the relationship is capable of surviving very tumultuous things that other couples wouldn't survive. So, for example, these two did break up for a while. I don't know how long they broke up for, but they came back from that and the relationship is stronger than ever. That's another positive of this trine, is it reinforces resilience into the connection. However, these are still malefics. Saturn and Pluto, they're still not great. So it means that the relationship will face challenges. However, they will be able to overcome them. They're going to face, when we're talking about Saturn and Pluto, there's systemic issues. So they're not always interpersonal things. It could be like literal logistical issues. Pluto could be like literal power structures, issues like incompatibilities in their lives. With a trine, though, it means that these very incompatibilities, the difficulty of the relationship, is exactly why the relationship is resilient, because they've had to fight for it in a way that most couples wouldn't even try, and they have, and that's why the trines work. So the trines are essentially indicating this is easy between us, but it's not easy in the context of our lives, Saturn and Pluto. And yet, we're making it work, and that's why this relationship has staying power, and it will bounce back from conflict. Because think of it like strength training. Lifting weights sucks. It's annoying. But let's say you have to run a marathon. You're going to be a lot better at running a marathon if you are training in stamina. And that ultimately gives you a healthier body, which helps you to navigate smaller challenges much easier. But still, that initial burst of needing to train and needing to lift weights and needing to do that process is still difficult, even if by the end of it, you're actually much stronger. And that's what the trines do, is that, when we have positive aspects between the malefics, it means there are conflicts, but they make you stronger. They don't destroy you. They don't divide you. The conflicts drive the connection towards more connection and more harmony in the long run. What else can I say? They do have a North Node Chiron conjunction. This echoes Zendaya's stellium in Libra. She had a Mercury North Node Chiron conjunction. So this connection's a really big part of her life destiny. It's part of what will allow her to transcend some of the wounding or fears that can come with the path that she's meant to follow. When we're talking about the North Node in Libra, it means that a big part of her destiny are the people in her life, her collaborations, her work partners, her husband, her boyfriend. The people that she keeps near her are part of her destiny and are part of how she achieves the beauty and grace and elegance that she's meant to offer this world. And because her Chiron is conjunct her North Node, it means that this was born from a place of wounding. Maybe early in life, she didn't have a lot of allies. So she had to forge relationships that would stand by her and uplift her. So instead of having, how do I explain it? It's like the difference between always having been well-liked and having a bunch of friends versus always being a little bit ostracized and having made only one or two friends, but those friends are like, they're tight. Like they have your back. So the North Node Chiron conjunction for them as a couple means that this relationship is meant to heal both of them. It's meant to be about partnership, a relationship that is all about compromise, balancing, learning what it's like to be, one half of a relationship. And also, though, with Chiron there, it's about the biggest wound in the relationship, maybe being around how do we balance, how do we compromise, and then by surpassing that wound, maybe, who knows, maybe it had to do something to do with their breakup early in their relationship. Whatever broke them up initially is a thing that they master over time. That's Chiron, the wounded healer. It also means that as a couple in the world, they are a symbol of harmony and connection for others, and they can be quite healing to the people around them in some capacity. It could also indicate, depending on where it's landing in the chart, it could give you a little more info, but it could also be about maybe breaking family cycles or curses. Interesting. I don't know if their parents are divorced, but maybe that's a wound that she carries. If they're not divorced, there could just be maybe some wounding in their own personal lives and homes that they're making a mission to surpass together. Like there might be a big theme of like, I want to redeem my own childhood, or I want to redeem a cycle of broken relationships in my family through you and as a couple, right? So that's all I have here. Let me know what you guys thought, and I'll see you guys in the next one.